Shirley, we are starting to see a resistance to the second Trump presidency. It is, as of yet, a mishmash of activists, unions, civil society groups, and Democrats, and they are organizing against the Trump administration's onslaught against the federal government, where previous administrations have tried to seize the reins of power to immediately pursue policy goals or shifts. The Trump administration appears to be seizing the reins of power to tear it down. And in response, those in the pro-democracy camp are organizing to defend the basic functions of government. Many of the fights ahead are set to play out in the courts. Politico reports this, quote, President Donald Trump's era of retribution has begun. A wave of legal resistance is next. All eyes are now on federal courts, where challenges to these decisions are slowly starting to take shape. 2 judges have already blocked the White House from implementing its across-the-board spending freeze, and lawsuits in federal courts are potentially the last vanguard for those hoping to stop Trump's efforts to remake the federal government. The outcome of those cases will, in some ways, define the Trump presidency. As Politico mentions, judges have stopped the Trump administration's attempt to freeze trillions in federal funding. The latest rebuke to Team Trump came yesterday when a judge said that their, quote, actions in this case potentially run roughshod over a bulwark of the Constitution by interfering with Congress's appropriation of federal funds. And as for the administration's attempt to rescind the memo but still keep the freeze in place, the judge says this, quote, the court can think of few things more disingenuous. One might ask, do Republicans care that Trump is doing away with them, bypassing any kind of congressional oversight, their ostensible purpose? It seems that they don't care at all. Here's the Speaker, Mike Johnson.
I think he's taking appropriate action. Look, we're excited about everything that President Trump is accomplishing. He's doing a lot by executive authority, which we applaud, and we're going to follow that up and really reinforce what he's doing, the agenda, through legislation.
We pay his salary as taxpayers, and he sounds like a cheerleader. Joining our conversation is senior editor for Slate, host of the Amicus podcast, Dahlia Lithwick, is here. Also joining us, former chairman of the RNC, now co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend, Michael Steele is here. Michael Steele, I can see you're fired up from here. You go first.
Yes. So here's the deal. You asked the question, do Republicans care? No. The Speaker just made that very clear. You're right. He is a cheerleader for all of this. And there will be no slowing of this train. All of us need to get our heads out of the clouds of thinking that somehow, as we were talking in your last segment, the folks say, well, I hope we can work with them. They don't want to work with you, boo. They want to take you out, and not for dinner, okay? Just so you understand what going out is. They want you out of the picture. They want you powerless and groveling. They are now the superiors. They're now the ones in charge. 50 years of retribution, and going back to Republicans complained about every little thing, all of that's coming back now. And so, yeah, I think we're in a position where we see the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader in the Senate, just making the lane wider for the tools of destruction to flow through down that Appian way, if you will, if you need a visual. All of these things coming into the great city to tear it down and to blow it up. The nominees for, Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, Department of Health, they're all getting passed. Everybody's running around this town acting like there's some controversy here, that Republican senators are concerned and perplexed and worried about, whether or not this person is qualified. They don't give a damn if these people are qualified. They don't. Why are we pretending they do? Everybody's now talking about Senator Cassidy like he's going to do something monumental, like, oh, dare I say it, vote against Donald Trump's nominee? Come on. So I think we just need to, get ourselves focused on what is coming, Nicole. And all of these, folks who stand in the democracy space, like myself and many others, we need to gird ourselves not to sit in a hunker and wait for incoming, but to go charge those battle lines and to make sure that the American people are aware of what is about to happen to them. There are a lot of families and communities, as you well know, in the health space, in the economic space, in the government space. Pick a space that will be poorly served by this administration and its ilk in the form of cabinet secretaries and undersecretaries. And people are making decisions about how we live our lives in this new America with a K.
Dahlia, the courts have replaced Robert Mueller and Jack Smith and Liz Cheney and the January 6th Select Committee as the people who are coming to save us. And I just want a sort of a reality check as to whether or not that is, one, accurate, and two, healthy.
Is it healthy? I'll do the second one first. It's not healthy. There's supposed to be a three-legged stool, as Michael says, and Congress has sort of curled up in a ball, in a furry little ball at the president's feet, and that's the end of that. So we only have one entity now that can check both the legislature and the executive, and that's the courts. Is that enough? Look, I think it's useful to remember that in the first Trump administration, right, we remember what it was like in the first few weeks with the rollout of the Muslim ban and the courts that leapt into action, and not just federal courts, right? We had all sorts of, we have to remember this is a federalist system, and we have state attorneys general around the country who are leaping to the ramparts to do the work. So we don't have to just sort of hope that a couple of courts are going to do the right thing. As you said at the top, we've already seen injunctions. I think we're going to see more fairly quickly from a bunch of federal courts and from other, alarmed jurists. The real question is, and this is the one that I think a lot of lawyers are sitting with right now, is what happens when there's a court order. And unlike the Muslim ban, where we remember that the Trump administration burnished it past a second, burnished it past a third. What happens when the Trump administration says, yeah, take your court order and make me? And that's what I think, that's a classic constitutional crisis. And I think we might be days away from that. In other words, even a maximalist ruling from a court, an injunction that should stop this, not clear to me at this moment, based on the posture we're seeing right now, coming from the executive, coming from Elon Musk, that a court order saying stop this will be enough to stop this.
And let me just push you on that. What happens after they refuse to abide by a court order?
Yeah, no, then you're in the super scary territory of constitutional crisis. We've been there before. It's really a disaster for the country. And I think by and large, when you have the guy who's in charge of the FBI and the military and every computer system in the country and a court order on the other side, it doesn't always bode well for the rule of law. So I think that my view of this is if we come to that, then you really might be talking about the end of constitutional democracy as it is operated for the last 2 centuries. And I think it's really worth understanding that this seems like an abstraction because it's all kind of this inchoate fog of checks and balances and who's in charge of what. And, if the legislature is in charge of appropriations, what does that mean for me? But this is going to become, I think, really concrete and really, really real in the next few days and weeks.
All right. Well,